Virtuele munten, reële risico's. De enige garantie in crypto is het risico. Deze podcast is bedoeld als entertainment en geen professioneel beleggings- of financieel advies. Bitcoin is een permissieloos veilig netwerk. Euro-spaargeld is een garantie op koopkrachtverlies. Luisteren naar een podcast verbruikt elektriciteit.
Hi there, good evening. This is the Always Value Bitcoin podcast. Still managing that new name. Or the Alles voor Bitcoin podcast, the voice of the Belgian Bitcoiners. Bitcoin is now at 63,150 US dollars or 56,745 euros. And that's about as good as to go to buy 11,578 Big Macs. Today we're having another episode of our Always Value Bitcoin podcast for informing the people about Bitcoin in Belgium, but in Europe in general. And we're trying to do this in English. As you can hear, I'm not a native English speaker, but we do our best to give a good insight on the area of Belgium and the Netherlands in the area of Bitcoin. Today, we're also having another guest on the podcast to take a look at hardware wallets and multisig. And I'm welcoming Rob from the Bitsaga shop and services. Welcome to the podcast, Rob.
Thank you, AVB, for inviting me. It's great to be here. Huge fan of the show.
Thank you. The first question is always the same, and that's how did you become a Bitcoiner?
How did I become a Bitcoiner? I guess my story is similar to many of those who got into contact, I guess, relatively early on, but then soon the head turned and got distracted by all these new shiny kids on the block that were faster and more energy efficient and whatnot. You know the story. And it took me quite a while to see the bright orange light. I wasn't as lucky to be surrounded by Toxi Maxis or friendly Maxis. But eventually, of course, turned around. And then after some more while, it clicked further. You get lured into Bitcoin. I still remember that it was from colleagues on work, investing and making money, of course. And then as soon down the road, or not soon, but after a while down the road, I guess everyone's path is different. You start to realize that this is just about freedom. That's what it boils down to. And that just ignites a fire of, okay, you or at least for me, have to do something with this. And that's how Bitsaga came to be. Started out still with crypto related in the early days, then became with Bitcoin focused a payment gateway, but payment gateway is really it's a tight space, and then started to focus more on where market demand is. I guess we can talk more about Bitsaga later down the road, but it has been a wobbly road to become the Bitcoiner I am today.
That's
Absolutely.
for many. That's the case for many people. I think. Let's go back a few years. Even I'm not gonna stick a year on that because people will get like confused or angry or whatever. But clear examples when the first, let's say, altcoins and stuff came up, that was technically sometimes interesting, and there weren't as much, let's say, Bitcoin related markets, Bitcoin maxis, and a whole subculture that was still in the early stages. That's not an excuse to be an altcoiner, but it's just something. If you're curious enough, and if you're interested in tech, and if you were a Bitcoiner, you certainly always looked around, like what's going on in the market. So that's a natural process. What's also a natural process is to leave that. And as you said in the beginning, it's a distraction mostly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a distraction. It's very hard in the beginning to see the signal through the noise when you aren't very equipped with all these new technical terms that are being thrown at you. And if you have a technical IT background, which is applicable to my situation as a software engineer, you try to wrap your head around all these fancy terms. You are really intrigued and challenged by these things, and before you know it, you spend a lot of time in writing actual smart contracts before you turn to the bright orange lights. So
Yeah, that's also
it's
a challenge today. I see a lot of people, and maybe that's good to explain. The frustration for this podcast when it came to be was also like there are so many distractions. People who come into the space and say like, "Oh, I'm interested in, let's say, crypto," and it's difficult to explain. Like, okay, there are so many projects and tokens and other stuff, let's say. If you don't start it with, didn't start with Bitcoin itself, it's sometimes difficult to explain to people like it's not one heap of all sorts of coins and then Bitcoin is just one of them, and you have to unlearn that bad behavior or those distractions a bit, and that's depending on when you came into Bitcoin and crypto for some people, but yeah, it's a process.
it's a process, most surely indeed. An angle I often take nowadays, if you have the time to go through the process, but it's sometimes is to go back in time, a very long time back in time, say 10,000 years, and you start with value, work, specialization, trade, money, and then the whole history. And that's how you build your story of Bitcoin, because that's where the story of money starts. And that then tends to resonate at a whole different level than making money or much of the technical aspects in trying to explain how the blockchain works, or many of these technical terms that, in my opinion, in the end do not really matter in what it's about. And what it's about is just it's money, and then it's about trying to understand what is money. And it's not an easy task, because we don't spend a lot of time critically, consciously thinking about it, but it's a process indeed.
Yeah, and also part of economic education, part socially, part history. I think that's so fascinating that so many parts come together in Bitcoin that it's incredible. And of course, encryption, the technical part, and the blockchain, but also like you said, going back thousands of years, even like how did we came to be to value something, and why is something more valuable, and why is a restriction on something scarcity, why is it important, and so on. So that's still fascinating to me. What's also fascinating is, and I want to start with that subject. Actually, we have a bit of an ongoing discussion, let's say, about a few things. We have not disagreements on itself, but just interesting discussions. And I wanted to ask you about hardware wallets, because my recent stance is that most people, and I'm maybe going out of the limb out of a limb here to say most of the people don't need hardware wallets. Now, you yourself with Bitsaga, you also sell hardware wallets. You don't just sell them; you also know them very well, and that's something I admire. I think that's interesting. What do you think about that? Let's say one-liner.
Well, I think it's actually, and indeed, I do mostly disagree with it, to say, but I think it's very valuable because it's a very unique standpoint. And if you look at it from an economical standpoint, it's a low supply standpoint, and therefore I think it's valuable. If you have some demand for it, I have demand for it because it's a different perspective. I think it's very interesting how you came to that perspective of most people. I can imagine indeed, but I would love to indeed dive into it. I am of the opinion that a hardware wallet is a great tool for solving the problems that we have with money today, that that Bitcoin, the protocol, tries to solve. And everything is a trade-off, of course. There is no such thing as the right thing. Cliche. I've also stopped or tried to limit actually making very specific recommendations or should do's, or trying to convince people, and just trying to inform with, these are options. What are your needs? And perhaps for some people, I can imagine situations where a hardware wallet might not be a great fit. But I think in general, I think it's a great tool in the Bitcoin, in adopting Bitcoin.
Okay. I'll quickly give my opinion on that. Very short, very short form. I've seen too many people, myself included, buying hardware wallets specifically for two wrong reasons. The first reason, and that's for myself, if you have, like, let's say, and I'm going to say a random number here, 8 hardware wallets, because you like the tech and you have an affinity to play around with the tech, and yeah, you just buy them if they are released to try them out. Then you're a techie, then you try to play around with it and you want to learn it. That's worth something, of course, if you try to admire these devices and let's say try them out. But in the course of history of Bitcoin, if I would have all the money that I've ever spent on hardware wallets in Bitcoin today, I would be, let's say, far better off, and I have more Bitcoin then. So that's one thing. Of course, that's the natural progress of Bitcoin. You can say the same about, let's say, a car or a PlayStation or Nike shoes. If you bought Nike shoes, you know the story. If you bought Nike shoes with Bitcoin a few years ago, yeah, it would be very, very expensive shoes. But that's one part, and that's only a part of it. But the second part is more important. Like, if you have, like, a person who just starts in Bitcoin, and one of the first things they are told is like, yeah, first they see ads for altcoins and DeFi projects and tokens and all that garbage. That's the first trap and the first distraction. And the second distraction is usually, oh, keep your coins safe and buy a hardware wallet. While they fork out, let's say, 500 euros to buy their first piece of Satoshis, and then they buy, like, for 200 euros a hardware wallet, which is safe. I cannot argue with that. But maybe they would rather spend that 200 euros on a hardware wallet, not on a hardware wallet, but on Bitcoin. So those are my two most, well, the critiques on that.
Yeah, I can understand these critiques, but it sounds to me that they are both encapsulating opportunity cost.
Yes.
And it's a very fair thing to say, but I think that every Bitcoiner or a person on his journey in trying to understand or even just investing in general is going to encounter opportunity cost as the price to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I guess a fundamental part that we cannot avoid in some sense. So I'm not sure if that is, or I can fully agree with that being a counter argument against hardware wallets specifically.
Yes.
The point is valid. If I would have invested in Bitcoin all the value I have invested in hardware wallets, I would have
Yeah, the
had a
most of
better
us are.
investment. Absolutely, that's a fact. But I don't think it's specifically to hardware wallets. I think it's more the aspect of learning on an investment journey, and not even specifically to Bitcoin. It seems to me, but
Yeah,
it's a fair point.
also, opportunity cost is a bit of a pet peeve of mine throughout the podcast. I'm really keen on explaining that, because it's not explained in our economic classes or at school at all. So you have to discover that for yourself. There is an opportunity cost for everything, even if you, let's say, have a subscription to a magazine or a newspaper. That's an opportunity cost as well. You pay something every month, and yeah, if you would have bought something like hard money for in exchange for that, you would have had not that stupid newspaper with all the opinions of certain journalists in that, but you would have hard money instead of that newspaper. But it's a valid point maybe for everything, not only hardware wallets, but I take it along the right for my arguments, which are also like, okay, you don't control the supply chain. No one actually knows what's going on in most of these hardware wallets on the factory side. So I don't say that I don't trust them, but there is a risk there. There is a certain risk, a risk that you don't have, in my opinion, with putting things on paper or a seat plate or whatever you want to use for keeping your seats safe.
Yeah, these are actually, I think, in my personal opinion, more valid critiques against hardware wallets, so to say, that there is almost always going to be multiple, in fact, factors of trust involved, and that's, I guess, an inconvenient truth for most people. I don't know a lot of people who are they are all mitigatable, who are not subject to these trust levels in trusting hardware manufacturers, supply chains, um, firmware, seed generation, and all different steps. And I think that actually it can be a beautiful segue into our next perhaps point of discussion, because indeed mitigating against all these
Yes,
issues of trust is a lot of work
indeed.
to do it well, and especially when you come to seed generation, you ideally have to verify on a second device that you get the same hashes, that there's no tampering with the nonces. Hello, Dark Skippy, anyone? So it's doing single sig properly is actually, I think, sometimes underestimated by
Oh
a lot
yes,
of people.
absolutely. I agree
And
completely.
and
Yep.
to do that properly, you almost always involve a second device. And when you involve a second device, then why not jump to um, the solution, in my opinion, that is the best fit for mitigating these trust issues, which is my segue into multisig. I think that is definitely not the perfect end all be all solution to everyone's, or perhaps all your critiques of hardware wallets, but I think it's heavily underestimated, overestimated in its complexity, and it has got a bad rep, it seems, amongst Bitcoiners themselves. In
Indeed.
fact, I have come to experience. So I think
I
there's
think for
a
good
great
reason.
opportunity there.
Yeah, I think for good reason, but let's first say that there is a beautiful solution in multisig. It's invented for a reason, and maybe we can shortly explain what it exactly is for those who don't know, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Or if you want to pivot back to hardware wallets,
Yeah, maybe for a bit, because one thing I wanted, you mentioned firmwares. I wanted to tell a little anecdote about a cold card I had. And I accidentally, in being fast and a bit stupid, I accidentally myself downloaded a wrong firmware. And I put it on a Mark II cold card wallet. And it was bricked. So tough luck. and then that device is gone and you cannot use it anymore, so on. Now, first of all, I blame Coldcard themselves. If you have a firmware, you can build in checks that you at least get a warning or some double check somewhere. But okay, in general, they say, yeah, you are the user, you did something stupid and you downloaded a version for a Mark 3 or 1, I don't remember anymore, and you put it on the Mark 2, and yeah, now your device is bricked. So I think that's not nice, but on the other hand, if you're a total noob, not only stupid, but also new, you maybe don't know and you click on the first link on that website, you don't read it, you expect that it just works. And yeah, it's strange to me. Those are prone to like small errors, user errors maybe, but it it didn't feel right for me. Like I'm not gonna use the cold card anymore because yeah, if I give that as a present to a family member, for example, they wouldn't know that they did something stupid, and they would say like one day, "Oh, that device you gave me, it doesn't work anymore."
Yeah, that's very understandable. A pity that that happened, of course. Um, yeah, security is always going to be um, effort. It
Mm-hmm.
is never going to be as easy as sending an email. We are going to have to be aware that we can improve the UX, the usability, the ease of many of the steps involved.
Mm-hmm.
But CoinKite tends to be strict in its security. That's why it's so popular within the Bitcoin ecosystem. I think it's a it's a great angle they take and their wallet. Myself personally, I'm not a huge fan of how it works,
Mm-hmm.
mainly because I have this huge fetish for UX. It really has to be easy, even though I guess I am experienced, technically inclined. But it's a great fit for a lot of people. So yeah, if you have these strict,
Yeah,
yeah,
but we can safely say that Cold Card is not the most UX minded device, and that's not meant to be either. They don't build it to be the most easy
Mhm.
device, but they build it to be really secure, air gapped, and all that stuff. So just to not to completely diss them or to say that it's a bad device, not at all. But I'm just saying, like, yeah, mistakes can be made, and it's not easy to use for yeah, your grandma, for example. So yeah, just to
Yeah,
put that out there.
absolutely. And I think it's as I said before, it's not an in perhaps inherent thing. It's the way they do things, Gold Card.
Hmm.
But as I said before, the doing single sig properly really comes with a lot of gotchas,
Yes.
verifying the firmware.
Yeah, or
Is it
even
only just
yeah, or
yeah?
even using the right BIP39 list, because even those have two versions, one that starts with 0 and one that starts with 1. And if you
Yeah, I saw
yeah,
your yeah,
I,
I saw your post. That is beautiful.
but it's crazy, like
Yeah.
for years people make it and say, yeah, if you want to use it mathematically correct, if you have the first word, it's not 1, it's 0, and mathematically that's correct, but no one uses it that way, or close to no one. So when you throw a dice and it lands on 1, for example, then you have to pick the first word, which is abandon, and then they say, no, 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 it's actually the second word. So there's already a discussion about which list to use. It's funny, and which adds to your argument that it's difficult to do single sig on itself, and that's true.
Yeah, definitely. If you just consider the firmware side of things, where people now are aware, or at least I guess Bitcoiners, from what I'm grasping, to verify their firmware. But that's only just verifying that the CTO or the company, let's say,
Mhm.
it has released this package. It has no verification on the actual build. It has no verification on what's actually on your device. You additionally require the checksum validation. Building the binary from source is the first mitigation. So there's already 3 steps involved to do that properly. And there's just a lot of gotchas. And what has been a great convincer for me is the fault tolerance that multisig introduces. You are allowed to make a critical mistake in multisig and you're good. You don't lose your funds. Of course, there are still gotchas overall in setup, in security, in privacy, in managing everything. But for me, it was a great solution in worrying about my existing setup and then solving some of these worries and by going into multisig. Me too had this how to say judgment of it being too complex, but looking back on it, I think it can be compared to everyone's first not insignificant transaction where the cold sweat starts to break out.
Yep.
Did I make a mistake? It's just it's tense the first time, and then you look back on it and you've done it 10 times and you're good. You're more comfortable with it. You're not as worried as much. And I feel the same with the multi-sig hurdle, the perceived complexity. And then when you do have some experience with it, you're like, this is not too bad. This is very okay. And that's what I hope to pierce through a bit. I do think that much of the criticism of complexity was very valid when it was just Electrum without PSBTs,
Don't get me
without
started on
QR
that one.
codes. That was absolutely horrible. I'm a very big proponent of usability, and that was absolutely unusable. So we have come such a far way that it's really time to shed that judgment of complexity. I'm not going to say it's not complex, but I do hope it's my intention, my goal that by showing using there's a workshop coming up
Explain
in the
about
Bitcoin
that.
Antwerp conference, and it's really going to be focused about the QR codes, how everything now can be managed by QR codes, and it's just the most beautiful, not how to say collateral benefit, not collateral damage of the air gapping trend that we have seen pop off lately with all the camera-based wallets or signing devices like Seed Signer. The air gapping was a security measure to never use to avoid the USB stack, which is inherently unsafe, and use QR codes, and it just enabled the great flow of just scanning QR codes, receiving but also sending, and then the PSBT flow to pass along your partially signed transaction or create an unsigned transaction. It's the most beautiful thing now. I think it's absolutely fluid and smooth, and then you have these beautiful and simple app UIs like Blue Wallet, absolutely OG wallet that does it beautifully.
I
So
don't agree with
I'm a
that,
big
but I'll
proponent of
explain.
it, needless to say. So.
I tried multisig with Blue Wallet a few times, and I must admit that it didn't succeed. The problems I have with multisig, and I agree that it's improved since the days of Electrum's first try with that. That was horrible indeed. We came a long way. I've seen demos of, let's say, indeed the QR code scanning, even also with the Jade wallet, which I'm not too in favor of for all kinds of reasons. But okay, it works, and you can scan and you can create your own QR codes and then scan them. That works. I saw it work. It's okay. But to say that it's smooth or not complex is maybe a bridge too far, in my opinion. I know that you have another opinion, but let me explain one thing. It's, for example, with Blue Wallet, they have a video online on their YouTube channel where they explained, like, okay, do you want to sign a multi-sig transaction that was created with Blue Wallet? You create it like this, and then you can spend it. And they show it in their video. It's all nice. It's a nice movie. And I literally followed what was on the screen, which, yes, I'm a bit of let's say not pleasant on that way. I do it literally what they show there, and it didn't work. So because it's a bit hidden in their interface, you have to not sign it directly, but go into the settings of a particular transaction and then say it's a multisig, and then scan the right key and so on. So in essence, yes, you can make it work, but it's just too complicated to explain to anyone who is not technical, in my opinion. And then the second thing I really want to tell is I'm still um, in the process of recovering funds on a multisig, between one hardware wallet, two software wallets, and it was all created on Sparrow, and it's just not pleasant. Just to say, it's just not there yet.
Yeah, I think I can understand your experiences,
Yeah,
that they
frustration. Just say it's a
probably
frustration.
have left a sour taste. Um, but I think it is a tool in the stack. It is most definitely not for everyone. It's not for beginners. It's probably not for a lot of people. But I do think that for those people um, that might see a match for it, that where
Hmm.
it could take worries away, which was applicable to me. It solved a lot of my worries. That group of people has grown over the years significantly, and it is absolutely my mission, part of, to try to address, help these people, because what I see
That's great.
with conversations in clients mostly is the most consistent thing I hear is people worry about their Bitcoin, and I think that's a huge pity. They worry that it could get stolen, their own user error. We all know the same feelings, and many of these worries can be mitigated in some way by either baked into the protocol, application layer, hardware layer, or yeah, whatever it is. It's definitely not always multisig, but I guess that's the main goal. And I have seen the slice of multisig taking away worries grow over the years, partly because, or mainly because of improvements in the protocol, PSBTs, and then also the hardware support with the cameras, and then on the software layer also. So it's really across the stack that
Hmm.
a lot has improved, and that's just that just makes me happy, and to see. Perhaps we still have a different judgment of the entire stack, but I think I'm just happy to see the improvement overall. I can't. I'm really happy to see what the future brings.
Hmm.
You should definitely check out the workshop on
Oh yeah, I
the
will.
Antwerp Bitcoin conference, which is a blue wallet based, because it's rather simple. The app, there's many great options out there. Bitcoin keepers underestimated. Everyone knows Sparrow, but I think Spectre desktop for multisig is
Hmm.
actually better. Might be an unpopular opinion. We'll add that that is my opinion, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't
Blue also on
recommend
the desktop. Nunchuck is great.
Nunchuck is
Yeah, that's
cool as well. Tried it, but yeah, I don't recommend Sparrow for. At least in my opinion, yes, I've seen some strange things. Also, the UI is not that great, to say the least. And but on the other hand, they are very supportive if they can help you, and they are responsive. So they want to help. That's great. But on the other side, I really want to stress that I don't want to say to the people like, oh, don't use multisig. If you need it and you feel more safe, just use it. You have to discover and test for yourself, or attend workshops like the one you will give on the October the 5th conference in Antwerp. So inform yourself, and then you can decide, just like, should I buy a hardware wallet or not? I'm not going to tell anyone that you don't need it or you have to buy one. In my opinion, a lot of people don't need it. That's what I'm telling you. But you can judge for yourself, of course. If you say like, well, I'm pretty safe and pretty cool with holding my Bitcoin on whatever software wallet, hey, that's fine with me. But yes, that's less secure than holding it in a hardware wallet and so on. So yeah, that's true. But purely about multisig, there are so many factors on that, and it's so many ways to look at it, and it is rather complex. But also the improvement proposals are still ongoing on that. I think there is multisig 2. Is that already released? I'm not sure yet. And maybe they can improve the way it works. For example, the order in which you have to keep your public keys in there, the public master keys in there to share. A lot of new people don't know to keep all that data. They just say like, oh, I have three three seats, and I save them, and it's 2 out of 3 multisig, so I'll be all right. Well, that's not always the case. There are some cases that you put your funds in danger if you don't know what you're doing. The same for time locks, by the way. If you time lock your Bitcoin and you don't know what you're doing, chances are that you will be locked up until like 2040 or something.
Yeah, I guess these are fair points, but I would add that they are rather advanced aspects. Time locks, definitely. And
Yes.
then, what was the first thing you were? I lost it.
Yeah, the multisig 2 and
Yeah,
the order on which you have to
yes,
give in
the
the keys.
order
Yeah.
that's also actually been uh, a improvement that by the new default seems to be by wallets, and I think it's great that they abstract that away. That the multisig script is a sorted multi. That the export the extended public keys the sorted multi script sorts the xpubs in a specific way such that it does not matter which order you store them in. So that's just another layer of you don't have to worry about this aspect anymore. It's one of the many things that has gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a small thing. I think it's good that it's not necessary anymore. Um, just like the time lock is probably rather advanced. But what I like about all these great application layer solutions now, Bitcoin Keeper is great, Spectre, Nunchuk, Thea is a new player. They really pull the UX card only on iOS for now, sadly enough. But I think Blue's actually also pretty great to start. Again, it's just what suits best
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for different situations, for different worries, for different risk profiles. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I've quickly looked something up. It's for the techies among the listeners. It's BIP67, deterministic ordering of multisig keys. So you can look that up and read that Bitcoin improvement proposal to know all about it. But the, um, the there's a whole range of improvements going on. I think it's fascinating that there are now I think the passport really dedicated devices that do it in a more modern way to have people use multisig. If it and I admit for myself, I would feel a lot better and more at ease with Bitcoin in general if there was a really good solution for me in multisig that I can blindly trust. And I don't trust it yet. Maybe that will change, but I don't trust it yet. I've seen too many shenanigans going on, or mistakes on my side, or things that weren't working as expected. but there is improvement, of course, and I think it's not ready yet for everyone. But if you're, let's say, a company that needs to sign with a few people and decide about giving out or sending out funds, then it's of course ideal to not do that on a single sig. We can agree on that, I think.
Yeah, and I think yeah, it's what I said before, that it's going to be a fit for a specific situation. Um, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also, what device would you, let's say, if you have to make a top three of like, okay, the devices that you yourself like the most uh, in the current market, hardware devices, if you want to
That's
tell that, of course. You don't
that's
have to.
I get that I get why the question. I kind of really hate it
All right,
because
then we skip it.
I'm very consciously, but I will answer it in some sense. I hope. I try to be very conscious in making recommendations
Hmm.
and trying to or yeah, convincing people of A, B, or C. Um, what I will, what I would love to tell, absolutely, is in no specific order, some things that excite me about different hardware
Ah,
wallets
okay. The features
or
or something.
signers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's more the informing angle then,
All
and
right.
then perhaps listeners might identify, hey, this sounds very interesting. So, well, I will skip some basics here, perhaps, but something that really excites me very recently has been the latest firmware release of the Foundation Passport,
Mm-hmm.
which includes ephemeral seed loading. Fancy word for temporary seed loading, aka seed signer functionality. Um, the the ability to load an extra seed onto the hardware wallet by scanning a QR code,
Mm-hmm.
simply pointing a camera at a QR code, and you load an extra seed onto the device that you can then also sign transactions with. So just a great
That's great indeed.
addition. That's absolutely great. It's a great addition in your toolkit. Again, which is my in handling multi-sig. That seed signer is needlessly segues me beautifully into seed signer. I guess perhaps a couple more words on Passport. That the build quality, the replaceable battery, the UI. For me, I really value ease of use. I am not afraid of the technical details or jumping into the CLI or the approach that CoinKite with their cold cards is taking. But I just absolutely love it. Just feels more comfortable for me to manage my Bitcoin, my keys, signatures, passing them along on a passport. Um, then on the other side, the seed signer um, being built completely open source from off-the-shelf components you can get in a web shop on a 3D printed case. Perhaps the 3D printed
Mm-hmm.
case can feel a bit janky, but I think it's also a very beautiful aspect of it that it's completely DIY buildable. It just fits the Bitcoin ethos absolutely beautifully. The UI has been improved so much. All open source contributed from not just user experience professionals, but also PMs that are helping the project and taking huge leaps. Um, and then the aluminum case is absolutely, it just throws you back into being a 5-year-old boy on your Game Boy again. Not sure if you can hear the clicks, but they are absolutely lovely.
That's cool. Yeah.
Um,
Sounds cool.
yeah, and then another one perhaps that is maybe underrated or frowned upon that I like again for the ease of use mainly is the Keystone.
Okay.
Um, they have a touchscreen. They now have Bitcoin only firmware. Yes, they also have wallets that support shitcoin, which by definition makes it a shitcoin company, which should be condemned with shame. I agree. But
Well, I'm not gonna say it, but hey, you said it. You said it. But it's not me this time.
but yeah, but the wallet itself, when you turn it on, the touchscreen interface just greets you with the onboarding process
Oh, that's
that is
nice.
so smooth. And then you have the two main buttons of Bitcoin, which is send and receive, QR based everything with the partially signed Bitcoin transactions, pointing cameras and showing it to another camera, perhaps on Sparrow on your desktop. It's just so nice to to play around with. So I don't want to pick one over the other here, but these are just aspects that I truly love. Great tools in the multi-sig toolkit. There's many different great ones out there, but I really feel these three are underrated. I'm definitely biased. I should, I guess, add perhaps also a disclaimer here because I sell all of these devices.
Yeah, that's no
So
secret. That's
that's no
and that's
secret,
no
but
problem. Yeah, but nice for you to mention that.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's very important. All these transparency things. I also have, by the way, a two-way affiliate with Bitcoin Keeper, the app. I also think it's very underrated. So I guess we can also talk about the application layer solutions, but on the hardware side, I really like these three these
Okay,
days.
that's cool. It's it's like there are so many devices these days that it's difficult to choose, and I I'm a bit lost on that. Like there are so many devices with new features. Like I heard mention of new features that even support Sharim shared secret, which I really love, which is an awesome way
Mhm.
to encrypt and distribute data in general, not only seeds but whatever you want. And I like that very much to be incorporated in all hardware wallets if possible. But just and that's fascinating to me. There are companies busy with really developing great tools, and I think we will get there, or we maybe we are already there, to have really smooth operational hardware wallets that can be used for any purpose. Like if you're really security keen or extremely paranoid, but also like if you're a total beginner and like a really smooth interface that doesn't make you worry about anything, with a great onboarding, which is also something that's underrated also in software. The onboarding is so important. So I really like software and hardware wallets that take care of that. So it's great to see that so many companies are busy with that. So I really really like the features you mentioned here. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And perhaps also to throw in, it's a bit preliminary. It's actually way too preliminary. But at Bitsaga also working on a new device
Hmm.
with the angle, the approach of basically the seed signer being open source hardware completely without a secure element inside. So that level of trust is gone because for up until today we do not have an open source secure element. I
Hmm.
hope that's coming soon. Every hardware wallet stores a key with a secure element. They have an NDA. There is a level of trust there, which is a real pity. So that's why the seed signer approach, the stateless approach, you can use a password and also a Jade, by the way, completely stateless. So I think that in the future is going to be an interesting angle that I'm actively exploring with the device is the Spectre Shield. It was a bit lost and forgotten, um, and I think that's a pity. The support for touchscreen, which I think enables the best user experience, also with smart cards, that you can have a very cheap solution
Hmm.
with just storing seeds on a card, pin protected, not storing them in plain text, which is another perhaps inconvenient truth for a lot
Yes.
of Bitcoiners storing their seeds on steel, very proud, but plain text. Perhaps not ideal. So there's always something to improve. And that's what I'm also trying to do. But it's a crowded space. I feel you when you say that there's a lot of solutions out there. I always try to talk and listen and ask about, okay, what your priorities, risk level, technical knowledge is. And there's absolutely, because of all the many choices, a very great fit for you, whoever you are. So I think that's absolutely beautiful. It's really become we are getting ready for, fingers crossed, a big wave of adoption. Absolutely, I think.
I think so as well. But with so many choices and so many solutions going on, it's even more difficult for new people to decide. And yeah, that's something that worries me, and that's also why I try to inform people about it, and yeah, let people like yourself explain what's going on in the space and what's available. That's also like
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
the task in general of the Bitcoin space right now. I think the big wave that's coming, we can't be sure of that to begin with, but in general, we can expect more adoption. Bitcoin will start another journey. The 4-year cycles, I think, are still intact. Not everybody agrees with that, but okay. But in general, we see more and more demand for storing coins, let's say in general, because yes, the shitcoin space has also needs of secure devices. So yeah, if a hardware device can support that, we frown upon that in general. But let's be serious, the market is also there for that. You can might as well give out two versions of hardware wallet, one for Bitcoin only and one for well, all the rest. And there are many examples of that already. If you agree with that or not doesn't matter. It grows the space in general. But for Bitcoin specific, which is what interests us, of course, the security will be very, very important together with the ease of use. And that's something in from a technical perspective is something that really doesn't well mix good a lot of times in technology in general. So something is usually very secure and not easy to use, or very easy to use and not that secure. And I think in Bitcoin we have the challenge to do that and to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on two level, Bitcoin is very uniquely positioned for that because in the physical world, you just don't have the possibility of splitting something up into multiple slices, and geographically distributing your risk and mitigating the $5 wrench attack and many other attack surfaces. So the being digital just enables that beautifully, and then jumping the air gap and purely storing your seeds completely analog on steel. The seed QR spec by the Seed Signer project, in fact, it's absolutely beautiful to see that adopted by the wider industry.
Yes.
Passport now, as I've said, but Jade and many others. So it's really beautiful to see to see jumps made not only on the security front, but hand in hand with UX improvement, with the camera based PSPT QR code signing for private keys, public keys, and transactions. To receive and send the whole Bitcoin. There's going to be two main Bitcoin actions, right? Send and receive, and everything can be based on QR code. So I think that's absolutely, yeah, I think that's great. And then I think there should be more touchscreens. It's a very difficult security thing, apparently, but
Yeah, it
that's
apparently
what
is, yes.
that's what I'm aiming for.
The beautiful part is, and we can conclude with that, I think, is hardware wallets are not for everyone, in my opinion, but in the future it will be, because it will be so easy to use and so secure, and it will be a digital vault or an invisible vault somewhere in, let's say, the block space, the blockchain, or cyberspace, whatever you want to call it. But it's out there. It's not something like in the beginning you have some paper stored away in your drawer with your seeds on it, or even your private keys directly on it, like in the old days. It will be more like invisible, and it will be more secure, and people will learn to handle it. I really trust that that will be reached.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think uh, we can recognize ourselves, I think, in being skeptical at first about Bitcoin and then being skeptical about many aspects, and now perhaps being skeptical about hardware wallets, perhaps being skeptical, many people, about multi-sig. And I think there's Bitcoin just keeps is the gift that keeps on giving, keeps teaching. There's so many different black holes to fall into, and I think it's a beautiful journey.
Oh,
You really
absolutely.
get humbled.
Yes.
You get humbled by it. Stay humble, stack sats by Odell. I think the whole ethos is beautiful, and I think I'm very excited for the future, and just the overall the cultural shifts also that Bitcoin brings.
Yes.
Very excited.
Well, also we route around problems, and I really love that mantra as well, because um, we overcame so many things, FUD, but also technical problems, issues, and so on, infighting. Bitcoin always goes on. It's a sort of brutalism style. Bitcoin brutalism is also like something I really like. Like we stand in the middle of all this crap that's falling down left and right, and we keep standing. And but we also route around problems, and maybe this let's say skepticism towards security, multi-sig, ease of use, the complexity, all the concerns I have personally as well, is something that Bitcoin and the Bitcoin space in general needs to route around. And I see that happening. It progresses almost every month. You see progress there, and that's great to see. And maybe one day I, w- I will say like, oh no, those problems are gone. We can safely and easily use multisig now, which is not yet, I think, but we're close. We're close. We're
Yeah, I
getting there.
think it's very fair, and yeah, not just fair, also very valuable. The constant critique that you and others uh, give it on various different aspects. That's why it has become so strong,
Hmm.
in by constantly attacking it and keep improving it and routing around problems, as you say. That's what we absolutely need. We need to be aware of our echo bubble and saying to the moon, but
Yes.
it's we need to keep attacking it, be critical, keep improving it, and then we will reach wherever it is that the goal may lie. Eyes on the target of, I guess, fix the money, fix the world. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
Stay critical is very important.
Indeed, and I can only agree with that, because staying critical is also important to make progress. If you want to make progress, we have to know where our weak points are, where our weak points are in even the social layer or something else. And it's awesome to see, like a small anecdote, totally unrelated to hardware wallets. I was at the Node Runners Jubilee on Sunday, I think. Yes, and I talked to a few people, also people that were, let's say, rather critical of some things I said, and I loved it. I really loved it. You could discuss, and you felt that everyone was there to improve Bitcoin, to improve the social layer, to improve meetups, and so on. And that's lovely to see. And without those discussions, if we are all funsies and standing with our thumbs up, like, oh yeah, everything is fine, then you have little progress or very slow progress. And I think that's very important, to stay critical, but to not bash it. I'm not saying like, oh, no one buy any hardware wallets, it's all bad. That's bad. You have to be realistic, and also say like, okay, if there is a good solution for something, why not embrace it and test it? So progress. Love that.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything you wanted to add here for this episode about hardware wallets, multisig, or Bitsaga in general, or whatever you want to add here?
Well, I guess perhaps reiterate maybe a little bit a feeling that I've resonated with many people, clients that I've talked to, that the worries that people have, and that you are not alone. Should you have them, there are solutions for you. And just as I guess most of us did in the beginnings, sometimes it involves a little leap of faith. And I'm convinced that you will feel on the other side a blissful peace of mind with freedom and self-sovereignty.
That's great. That's a great one-liners to end this podcast. And I agree there. That's cool. Rob, I wanted to thank you to attend this podcast setup and this recording. I also want to thank you for all you do with Bitsaga and the explanations you give, but also the service you give, because we have a local source of, where we can buy hardware wallets if we want one or need one. And that's great to have, that we don't have to order it in some, dodgy shop somewhere in the UK or in the US, but we can buy it locally.
Yeah, absolutely. And being an official reseller of many of these brands that we offer is absolutely a badge to wear proudly. I think it's also very important in the mitigating the different one or of the many different layers of trust that we discussed. Thank you for having me on. An absolute joy. Huge fan of the show, as I said.
Thanks.
It was a great conversation. Thank you very much for all the work that you do. Absolutely. And I hope we have many, much more critical discussions like this in the future.
I guess we will. Thank you and good evening.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.